Hey everyone, my name is Jack Ananchenko. I'm the CTO and the co-founder at StellarSoft. Today's guest is Philip Mieger, fractional manager, marketing leader at Just Russel and the founder of the brand consultancy Lou8. Just Russell is a fast-growing pet tech company that builds personalized nutrition for dogs using data and algorithms to tailor meals to each pet. Since launching in 2020, they've already grown to support more than 100,000 pets across Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, and France. Today, we'll talk about the challenges of scaling their subscription brand, how marketing strategy is evolving after different releases in Apple, and how companies balance growth with profitability in an investor-based environment. Philip, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, let's start easy and talk a little bit about yourself and the way your mindset works. You've spent years helping companies grow as a consultant. What made you step into a more operational role at Just Russell?
Good question. I think of myself as both being strategic and operational. I think that's been part of my DNA for forever.
Hmm.
And while operating and leading big teams also has its ups and downs, I like to keep still part of my role as operational to the actual business to still understand and know what's going on. How can I support my teams? Because I feel like I can only support them if I actually know their day-to-day life. And um, might sound a bit corny, but I also just like to roll up my sleeves and do the hard work myself from time to time. I
Hmm.
truly, truly enjoy that. So
Hmm.
I guess that's the reason why I try to balance both more strategic consulting jobs with roles like at Just Russell at the moment, where I'm in the trenches doing the stuff myself, together with the team, obviously, but more in a hands-on position.
Yet, as a side note, as far as I know, you still have a, can I call it a dream of having your own brand, e-commerce brand, and selling your own products, isn't it?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. I mean, something I think a lot of people dream of, leaders in e-commerce, agency guys, that at some point, the big dream is to have your own brand. And I think we're entering now a stage empowered through AI where these things become so much easier.
Hmm.
So it might be that in the future, and maybe hopefully in the near future, I'm confident enough to yeah, do my own business. So that's absolutely right.
Absolutely. And not to go too much into detail, but in terms of when you say much easier to get into the brand business, is it like, what's your mindset? What's your take on it? Is it more about execution that it's easier, or is it more about like building a brand in general is easier?
Well, I'd say both. I think it's easier in execution because AI can just leverage your own knowledge and time by, I don't know what factor currently, let's call it 10x, right? And next month is going to be 20 and then 30, whatever, right? So you're not so much reliant on other resources like capital, people, stuff like that. So I think that makes it easier. And then obviously also creating a brand where maybe 5 years ago you had to do it through an agency and through a designer. I think these days you can just start using AI and probably scale it to a significant amount just by doing it like that. And then when you have the financial means, maybe to professionalize it even more, hire a team and so on. But I think getting started is easier than ever. So now's the time, I think, to maybe make a big bet on myself and try to build my own brand.
Awesome. So, and what changes when you move from advising companies to actually owning the results when we compare agents and product?
Hmm. I don't think that a lot changes, to be honest. At least from my mindset point of view, I
Hmm.
treat every client and every company that I work for like it would be my own. So I don't think that this will change dramatically.
Hmm.
Um, I guess at some point you will feel more nervous, right? Because in the end, I do work for other founders, and they're doing the heavy lifting, and they're probably more stressed than I am in certain situations because it's their money that's on the line. It's their
Hmm.
employees that, need to be fed through salaries.
Yes.
So that for sure will change, but I think the way I will approach it, it's probably going to be the same.
Okay. Okay, interesting. Let's talk a little bit more about Just Russell, and for anyone who is listening who doesn't know about you yet, how does the product and the business model work these days?
Yeah. So, like you said in your introduction, it's a subscription-based company specialized in pet food. And what's special, especially special about Just Russell, is their way to, yeah, personalize their product according to the needs of the cat or the dog. So while other big premium brands that you buy in the store obviously are not individualized or personalized, they're just made for everyone, maybe at some point for younger dogs or sometimes maybe breed specific. But that I think is flawed in itself because why would you give your dog like a standard diet? We as humans also do not consume a standard diet, so it makes so much sense to tailor it specific to the pet's need, and this is what the team is doing brilliantly and executing brilliantly. And then, well, I think that's no secret. Like with any subscription-based brand, you can create quite a, let's say, interesting business model out of that, especially if you're in a category where people constantly need your product, right? So if
Hmm.
you have a dog or a cat, well, that animal will probably stay with you for a while, and if he or she likes the food, well, there's no real reason to change that, right? So obviously, then for brands like these, the relationship or the share between customer acquisition cost and customer lifetime value is quite attractive, and
Hmm.
this is also then in the end the business model, to invest into customers and then ship and deliver a really good product so that your customer lifetime value is as high as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And a very good analogy that you mentioned between diets for human and diets for pets. So while it's very common for us to know about the diets for human, it's not really knowledgeable. We are not really knowledgeable enough to know about the fact that the diets for pets exist. And I'm sure that you deal with the issue on the market that you have to educate it to some degree that there is something that will help their pets be at the better level, to in better shape, um, breed and eat better and all of that. So how do you approach that? How do you deal with this situation?
Yeah, good question. I think that's also very difficult, not only for just Russell, but for any brand that's trying to open up a new market where it's more like a blue ocean, and you really need to educate the customer to really understand the product. With just Russell, there is definitely, let's say, a target audience who's naturally attracted to the product and is thinking about it because their dog or animal has health issues, right? And these can come oftentimes for these health issues, like gut related issues and stuff like that. It comes from bad food, actually. So
Hmm.
intolerances, allergies, some nasties that are in the food. So
Hmm.
these people actually have a problem and they're actively searching for a solution. And for them, it's obviously a little bit easier to convince them because for them, obviously, our product makes so much sense.
Hmm.
And then it's a little bit harder to convince, let's say, other people where maybe right now the dog or cat has no problems eating the food, and maybe the food is good and it's cheap, right? So why would they change their food? Because for many pet owners, that's actually one of the Well, I cannot speak for myself. I've never had a dog or cat, but from what I
Same here.
learned now and from what I hear is that it can be quite a painful transition, and it's not something you easily do just because of, um, uh, well, for no big reason. So we have to think about, okay, what are other reasons why people might change, right? And then for sure,
Hmm.
there, for many people, their dog or cat is it's like a child,
Hmm.
and maybe in some cases even more so. They would rather, I don't know, stop their own consumption and then feed the dog instead in crisis mode, right? Or when the children leave the house, the pet kind of becomes then the child and so on. So there's really deep emotional connections between owners and their pets, and educating them through speaking about the science of what I just mentioned. Why don't you
Hmm.
give your animal the same kind of food that you eat if you love it so much, right? Is one
Hmm.
angle how you can educate. Um, there's a community of owners who, well, I always call them biohackers, right? They hack their own life and optimize
Hmm.
their own nutrition, and the same kind of applies then also for their dog, right? So they do it not
Hmm.
because of sheer love only, but also because they just want to make sure that the dog lives a happy, healthy, long life. So these are the kind of narratives that we know resonate with
Hmm.
people, and the good thing is that it's not just quote unquote marketing or fancy marketing, but it's backed by real science. It makes sense. It's not something we just claim, but we can really back it with the data and the experiences that our customers go through. So that is one big benefit that Just Russell has because not many brands have that.
Hmm.
And then on execution, that is also tricky, of course, because you have to think in full funnel marketing. You have to think of, okay, what kind of funnel stage is my customer in terms of education? What kind of message do I need to send at what time? And how do I
Hmm.
balance these many messages that I want to send in order to convince them fully? And that's, yeah, is Champions League, I think, and something we are still learning to understand better at the moment. One of our
Hmm.
challenges,
Hmm.
and quite a complex one.
Sounds like a lot of resources goes there to do all of these researches, testing, and then convert that into the marketing incentives to then see what works, what doesn't, right, out of this research.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, well, I'm not sure if your audience knows this, but of course, since Meta is constantly changing also their algorithms, and since a year, it's become so much more important to diversify your message, to reach out to net new audiences. Your
Hmm.
content needs to follow your content strategy, your back end, and by that I mean your production needs to follow, and it's becoming so much more complex, almost month over month. So
Hmm.
that's an additional load on the team to deal with this complexity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, actually, my audience, all my audience knows the best is that algorithm in ads, Meta or Google, they change constantly, and this is one of the most challenging things in terms of acquiring paid traffic to keep up with the changes, updates, policies, etc. And then you basically have to make sure that your team or your partner they know what's happening over there. Uh, Quick question. Why is subscription such a central part of your business model?
Well, I think it just kind of makes sense when you think about it because it is something, what's the word in English? That it's like a consumer product, so something that you constantly need, right? It's not something you buy
Hmm.
once and then never need again. So we
Hmm.
just want to make it super convenient for our customers by delivering the food to their doorstep. And a subscription model is like a win-win situation for both parties, right? They know exactly, hey, at a given date, I will get my delivery. I don't have to think about it. And then from a business side, it's recurring revenue, so you can plan with it a lot better. So I
Hmm.
think this is the reason, or one of the reasons why it just makes sense. And yeah, I think you can boil it down to that.
Absolutely. Cool. When we look at the growth today, what are the most important metrics you track daily?
Yeah. So as with any subscription model, new customer acquisition obviously is very important. So how much can we grow our new customer acquisition month over month, together with our CPA? So how much does it cost for us to acquire a new customer? And then other metrics go more into the retention side of the business. So looking at customer lifetime value, retention rate, how good are we able to retain the customer? And then those result in top line growth and profit. So these are the main KPIs that we look out for.
Okay, sounds good. How do you balance new customer acquisition with long-term profitability?
I mean, it depends a little bit on the company and how much cash you have,
Yeah,
because
well, with
every 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 big, let's say, growth stage needs usually a tremendous amount of upfront cash, um, in most instances. So
Mhm.
if you're backed by investment, then it's a lot easier to grow a little bit faster
Mhm.
versus you have to make sure that the profitability window, or let's say the payback window, until the initial acquisition costs are being paid back is shorter if you don't have that cash at hand, right? And this is the balance act that every company, I think, has to execute, and it just depends on whether, yeah, how big is your bank account in
Yeah,
the end.
absolutely. I mean, and when it comes to investor-backed businesses, like it sounds like Just Russel is, it's always the case. So I've heard this many times that you gotta have a lot of cash and then you balance with it
Yeah,
to make sure that you're still profitable, right? So it's good that you can invest a lot more into the ads, but then like, do we need 1,000 ads or do we need 100 ads and then a 10% work of that
yeah,
out of them,
yeah, for
right?
sure.
So
And what I mentioned, like looking at the payback window, differs from brand to brand. But what I see, or what I would suggest though, is a common thread, is your relationship. Relationship, is that the right word? Between your customer acquisition cost and your customer lifetime value, right? So I think many operators or founders would say ratio, that's the word, 3 to 1 is like the gold standard, more or
mhm.
less, right? So this is an important metric also to balance growth with profitability. If your ratio is bigger than that, that's a clear signal that you can scale a little bit more, and you can accelerate your growth. If it's less than that, then I would, in general, suggest to look at the numbers again and see if it needs to be balanced more.
Absolutely. Lifetime value of your customers. Why do you think it is such a critical metric for in a subscription model?
Yeah, because compared to, let's say, a business model where it's more like one-time purchases and maybe a second, right? The relationship between your first order AOV and CAC, so customer acquisition cost, is way more important because you probably, your business model runs on exactly that, right? You cannot you're not reliant on the second order because most likely the second order will not occur. So lifetime value basically is your first order AOV. Whereas with a
Hmm.
subscription model, there is a one purchase AOV, second purchase AOV, third purchase AOV that then translates, depending on your margin structure, that are hopefully very good. So by good, I mean fully landed at least, nowadays more than 70%. Perfect would be 80, right? And well, this is then an important metric because usually for any subscription model, you pay extra for the customer upfront,
Hmm.
and you finance it through the lifetime value over time.
Awesome. Okay, thank you for the context. Philip, let's talk about paid acquisition and paid ads. But to start this off with something that you mentioned along lines in our previous conversations, you said that there was a shift from old media buying to a new model after iOS 14. What exactly changed?
Whew, I mean, that's now a long time ago. A lot has happened since then. But iOS 14, I think, was like a shock to the whole e-commerce, probably especially e-commerce, but most likely every company in the marketing organization worldwide. Probably even more so impacted in Europe through GDPR, but that I don't know. Yeah, it kind of changed. It completely flipped more or less the script, whereas previously media buying had quite significant incremental impact on how well your campaigns are performing, right? So before that, we would have, depending on the scale of the account, right, you would run, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 different campaigns with micro targeting, etc., etc.
Hmm.
And since iOS 14, that has changed a little bit, and content has become way more important. And content is the new tracking. Content is the new targeting. Sorry, not the new tracking. That's bullshit. The new targeting, and is I would say now 80 to 90% most likely and the reason whether your campaigns work or don't work. And iOS 14 probably was one of the biggest changes in the recent years, and then now followed by Andromeda, etc., etc. So it's clearly going in the direction of media buying still being important, of course, but it's not where the incrementality or growth lies these days.
Okay, cool. What mistakes do you think brands still make while doing the paid acquisition these days?
Mm, so I think we have to first of all um, look at it separately. So I'm now referring to Meta.
Hmm.
What I still see in a lot of brands is that they're making it way too overcomplicated on the media buying side.
Hmm.
Whereas keeping it more pragmatic and straightforward usually is the better way to do that. So what I mean by that, I still see very complicated campaign setups, whereas I would, in most of the times, argue a simpler one makes more sense. Um, Another problem that I see is that they kind of underestimate how much content the algorithm needs on a daily basis and also new content. And it's
Hmm.
not just about sheer volume. I think that's what a lot of brands also get wrong. It's about the relationship of creative diversity, so different content,
Hmm.
quality and quantity. And I think, yeah, those are probably the main, the biggest, let's say, mistakes that I see these days.
Okay, content quality and content quantity. Let's talk about the quality first. What do you think makes a creative perform well?
Okay, wow, that's a big question. I could now probably ramble
Speak
for,
ours, right?
for 20 minutes about that. Um, so to keep it simple, I would say still today a good creative is one that doesn't necessarily feel like advertising.
Hmm.
The more organic your advertising feels and your creatives feel, I still see a strong correlation and maybe even causation between that and performance. And it simply means that you treat advertising more from a more traditional storytelling point of view instead of like, okay, I have these 10 messages, I need to bring them across, I need to hammer it down. It's just USP after USP after USP. Without treating it like, hey, let's make this interesting for the person that I want to convince buying this. So it would mean that it's typically an ad that starts with building up curiosity, right?
Hmm.
Without telling the whole story, but cleverly addressing maybe something that the potential customer is interested in, or a solution he or she might look out for, or a problem, or something they're just simply unaware of. But
Hmm.
entering that conversation with driving curiosity in them to to yeah in the end be curious about finding out more, right? And then
Hmm.
slowly but steadily giving them the answers to it. So I kind of see it like a roller coaster ride almost, where you're constantly building tension and then releasing, building tension and releasing. So because I often see that brands too quickly then jump to the solution, and it's not good for retention on your ad. So the
Hmm.
more you approach it in the storytelling type of view, the higher your retention on ad views usually are. So yeah, I'd say this is usually quite a big part in how ads work these days, from my point of view at least.
Hmm.
And then it's all about creative diversity. So thinking about what kind of messages can I send to what kind of persona? How do I structure that? Then think in personas as macro and micro personas, really diversifying and almost like very strategically, analytically, systematically build up your content
Hmm.
system rather than just randomly, yeah, I might try that and then I try that and then I try that. I think you have to do it now in a more systematic approach, and then think strategically about, yeah, building your content portfolio that then sits in your always on or scaling campaign in Meta, driving home business.
Absolutely. And basically social media marketing doesn't really stand on the side, right? So you always have to keep up with what you do on the ads, with the storytelling, with the roller coaster on their like feelings, etc., about the brand, about understanding what the brand does, and then supporting it with some social media activities. I did see that you guys are very heavy in terms of like different events and all of that. So trying to educate the people as well, and then anyone who wants to look up um, your business more and understand your business more, they can not only look through the website but also check the other content that you produce,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
it's very
exactly.
good.
And I also think that, and this is probably even more true for, let's say, premium or higher end brands,
Hmm.
um, approach it in a way that you give something, right?
Hmm.
It's like a value add to the person's life instead of wanting something from them. I think that's a weird way to start a relationship, and in the end, it is a relationship between a customer and a brand. Always try to give more in the beginning, instead of just asking them to directly, I don't know, do X, Y, Z. I think that's also in in general a good way of approaching it. And you're absolutely right, through these events and community events and so on. That's part of it, giving back. But I think the same logic, not for every ad, but to some ads, can be applied as well. Because if you think of it, maybe a different story now, but um, so when you are in the market for, I don't know, wanting to buy a baby bed, right?
Hmm.
um, you might then remember a brand you saw earlier who educated you on how to sleep better as a parent. What are the tips and tricks so that your newborn child isn't so noisy in the night, right?
Yeah, I can
And
imagine. I can
you build
imagine.
that relationship, and then the customer comes back and remembers you and thinks of you, and it's like, okay, well, there was already a brand who helped me out, so now it's my time maybe to give back, right?
Hmm. Okay, interesting. Well, Philip, I mean, we managed to get it done within 10 minutes, not several hours, right? Getting back to content quantity now, how are you trying to improve the ratio between the ads produced and ads that succeed?
So you mean hit rate in the end?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the the most common way, or not the most common way, but my way to think about that is you have to do it systematically and with an analytical approach. So you have to understand why does an ad perform, why doesn't it? And a good way to start is having a really solid naming convention that
Mm-hmm.
entails a lot of signals, relevant signals that you might think are relevant for an ad to perform. So that could be what kind of format is it? Is it a podcast style? Is it a voice over B-roll? Is it a UGC ad? What kind of actor? Is it female,
Mm-hmm.
male? What kind of age? Is it daylight? Is it nighttime? What kind of emotions, underlying emotions are part of the ad? Is it fear? Is it joy? Is it happiness? I don't know. It could be a bunch of things. Could be 30, could be 40 signals that you identify as being relevant as to whether an ad performs or not, right? And these are
Mm-hmm.
then encrypted in your naming convention when you create an ad, which allows you
Mm-hmm.
then afterwards to analyze it and look at the performance and look at the correlation between these content signals and your
Mm-hmm.
performance KPIs to see, hey, is there a winning system maybe? Do I
Mm-hmm.
see combinations of these signals that strongly correlate with performance? Is it just one? Is it more? And then with that knowledge, systematically build what I mentioned earlier, your content portfolio and system by identifying these important variables and signals and then building it. I think this is one way you can tackle it. And then honestly, I think also, um, especially now with so much competition, you also just have to constantly stay on top of your creativity and think outside the box and be very quick, identify new trends, new formats, what's happening in the States, what are they doing. It's usually a good indication for every European brand to quickly hop on that bandwagon and try it here. Um, also, I think another tactic um, and then thirdly, maybe, and we're back to media buying. I think media buying also has an impact on how big of a chance you give your new creatives to 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 convince the algorithm that hey, this is something that might be worthwhile scaling and giving spend to. There, it actually depends on your media buying setup and how you set up the campaigns so that every ad that you give to the system actually gets a chance to prove itself.
Awesome. Do you have any like recommendations or tips about how to manage all of these campaigns, ads, naming conventions, results, and analyze everything? Like, what is your day-to-day tools or applications set that you would probably want to reveal or recommend as something that works?
Yeah. So I don't know of a tool that's able to do exactly what I described, to be honest. If there is one out there, I'd be interested to know. So far, it's more or less all in-house.
Hmm.
And well, for the campaign setup, it highly depends also on the scale of the brand, I would argue, and how much they're willing to invest into testing on a daily basis and how many ads they push out. Um,
Hmm.
because there's arguments for doing it within, we're now getting a little bit more into detail maybe, but to do it with an ABO campaign setup versus actually using a scaling setup, so a scaling campaign to do that. It depends a little bit on how much you output with what kind of budget.
Cool. Sounds good. A very global question in terms of growth, just to wrap it up. Um, wh- what mistakes do you think fast-growing D2C companies make when scaling too quickly?
Oh, good question.
Take your
Well,
time.
I would say there are a few that come to my mind.
Hmm.
One is that I would typically call like the communication tax. So what I see happening as kind of like a trap that leaders assume that just because they know the vision or the strategy, the rest of the team knows it too. and they underestimate like completely how many times and across how many different channels a message needs to be repeated before it actually sinks in.
Hmm.
So I think here the takeaway is at scale you have to over communicate to the point where you feel like you sound like a broken record.
Cool.
Um, and another thing that I had to think of is it's little bit more maybe a sad reality in the end, but I'm not sure if it's sad, but just the the speed at which roles outgrow people. So I I see that leaders, and probably also including myself, to be honest, in the past, and
Hmm.
maybe even still today, I we underestimate the emotional difficulty of realizing that, you know, an amazing loyal person who helped to get the business from, let's say, 0 to 1 million might not have the skills to get it from 1 to 10, right?
Hmm.
So scaling just requires to constantly redesign the org chart and yeah, sometimes to make incredibly tough decisions about shifting people's roles or replacing them with more experienced managers at some point. Um, and well, we already talked about it a little bit, but the problem of cash flow, you know,
Yeah, all the
um,
time.
sometimes the lookout for profit margins
Hmm.
and then thinking, okay, everything is fine, underestimating the massive upfront cash that is actually required. You know, I see it sometimes happening as a trap. So takeaway here is definitely you can so easily grow a company into bankruptcy, even though you're profitable, if you don't manage your cash flow meticulously.
Cool. Okay, Trey. Do you believe the personalized pet industry is the nutrition, pet nutrition is the future of the industry?
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't know why not, to be honest.
Hmm.
It just makes so much sense from every point of view. And then I strongly hope that it will be the future because right now, as you also mentioned, most people don't know about it. Even today, in my network or friends and family, when I explain the concept, they look at me like, "What are you
Hmm.
talking about? What is this?" And I've never heard about it before, and it takes quite some time to explain to them. So
Hmm.
we're just getting started, and I hope that in the future that more and more companies and owners will jump onto that concept.
Awesome. Okay. Well, to wrap it up, first of all, congratulations on your recent Transgazelle award and the unicorn discussion that Just Russell released on their LinkedIn page. From your perspective, can we realistically see a European pet tech unicorn emerge?
Yeah, of course, for sure,
Just Russell is the one.
of course, of course.
Okay, sounds good. Philip, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your take on how the former agency-based consultant and mindset can transition into owning the results. What you think about the bad tech industry? What you think about nutrition? About subscription models? About how difficult it is to maintain the content quality and quantity. Again, really interesting perspectives on all of these things. I do appreciate the time. For anyone who is listening and want to check out Just Russell, I'll leave all of the links down below, along with the link to Philip's LinkedIn page. Philip, again, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure, and I really enjoyed it.